We're going to strengthen the Provident Fund and expand the coverage of its services to the teachers. We are very strongly supporting the proposal of the Senate to increase chalk allowance. And it is on record that as early as last year, I was already in favor of increasing the salaries of teachers and everybody else. But as I said during the cabinet meeting, it cannot be done in one full sweep, because at that time the proposal was to increase the basic pay to 39,000. And this is on record. Although they say I hate the teachers, I don't want them to increase their salaries. What is on record in the cabinet is, I said it has to be in tranches. Because if we give the increases in one fell swoop for everybody, it will cost us 350 billion. And right now, the new tax law will only raise 60 billion in its present form. So it has to be done in tranches. Besides, of course, if you will remember from your classes in economics, you pour so much money in one fell swoop, then you're going to push prices up as well. So these are, what are the other things? We're also going to utilize certain portions of the MOE, which we want to be increased for the annual physical examination of all the staff of the department. So they don't have to pay out of their own pockets because prices vary. We have made calculations and we find that this is going to be feasible. To use we had a debate in central office to use whether to use the Provident Fund or the MOE, and we feel that if we increase the levels of the MOE, then we can afford to pay for the annual physical examinations of the teachers. We're looking at the other benefits which teachers should be getting, especially under the Magna Carta for teachers, to see what we can immediately implement, starting with next year's budget with 2019 and maybe 2018. Of course, chalk allowance will be increased. We're also going to expand the feeding program for children. No less than the Department of Budget and Management Secretary has expressed a preference that we should feed all the children instead of just those who are wasting and wasted. Kasi 120 days, and then after 120 days, they go back to their wasting and wasted look again, because it's 120 days only. But he has been insisting that we do it for all children. The challenge is the administrative mechanism by which we will implement this. So I'd like to assure you that you have a Secretary of the Department of Education who cares for the teachers and its employees, but at the same time cares for the country, cares for the economy, because what you will be getting in terms of increased benefits will always go back in the form of taxes and higher prices if you are not careful and if you don't manage this carefully. So ayon, hopefully by next year, we'll be looking at the offer of GSIS to buy the loans of the teachers. There are also other private groups who are making the same offer. We'd like to thank the SDSS who on their own initiative have been rendering financial literacy programs to our teachers, especially as part of induction. I believe you are aware, by the way, you are aware that the bill which was initially, filed by Senator Bam Aquino on entrepreneurship and financial literacy is already a law. This is as of October. And so, all educational institutions, including the Department of Education, are all required to offer not only entrepreneurship courses, but also financial literacy courses, subjects for high school students. It's senior high school. And so, if we want to teach it effectively, our teachers also will have to be familiar with the basic principles of financial literacy. It does not mean that someone who takes up and who wants to know more about handling money is bobo or is illiterate. What it means is that perhaps you get an overview of what certain principles are. Because many of us, including myself, because probably you are aware that spending is part of the Visayan culture, but managing finances is not only spending, it's also investment, it is income, it is savings as well. And perhaps we have to look into this. So these are the new developments which you can look forward to towards the end of the year and also the coming years. We will be continually looking for ways by which we can improve the life of teachers and make the lives also of our learners easier, but at the same time also spare the taxpayers and program the way the revenue side is going to be handled. Because finance is not only expenditures, and you know that very well. It is also revenue, and the challenge is revenue. The challenge is investment, the challenge is in savings, and that is very basic in elementary economics. And now very, very briefly, I'd just like to comment on the topics which you have selected, which are very, very important to all of us, not just as teachers, as supervisors, as principals, and as officials. I think one of the very important topics is on lifelong learning. And as I am now 77 years old and I'm moving to 78, I know that it is a very important aspect of life to be continuously learning. There is no such thing as knowing everything. There is no such thing as when you receive your diploma, therefore, you know, you have a doctorate, you have a master's degree, you have honors, etc. It does not mean that you stop learning. And this has become much more urgent these days because the world is changing and our country is changing every day. And it takes all our energies to keep up with the changes that are now going on. Now, the formal definition of lifelong learning, of the lifelong learning paradigm, was framed as early as the 1970s by the UNESCO. But I also like the definition of the International Labour Organization, which describes lifelong learning as all learning activities, not just in school, not just from books or laboratories, undertaking throughout life for the development of competences and qualifications. So it's not really too late to learn financial literacy or digital literacy. I myself am financially illiterate. I have no savings, I have no investments, and as a typical person from the South, I just think of expenditures all the time. And now I realize too late that I have to go back to the basics. But at the same time, the way of looking at lifelong learning is not only picking things here and there as you go along life, but it also fosters the values of peace, of democracy, of tolerance, intercultural understanding, gender equity, and care for the planet. And these are things these are issues which concern us at this time and are very meaningful for us, not only in the whole world, but also particularly in the Philippines. And in the BELEM framework for action on lifelong learning, the role of lifelong learning is critical in addressing global educational issues and challenges. Because we like to think we already have PhDs, we know all there is to know about what to teach, how to teach. No, I completely disagree. Every day we learn that there is so little that we know. Oftentimes, our students know more than us. As a professor of public administration, where I teach public finance, I'm always challenged to be ahead of my students. Because if one is not careful at the rate students themselves are learning from sources outside of school, from social media, from the internet, and so on, they will have more questions to ask us, and from us they expect also answers. So lifelong learning from the cradle to the grave is a philosophy, it's a conceptual framework, an organizing principle for all forms of education, formal, informal, as whatever form of education, based on inclusive for everybody. This is what we are doing. We are including the indigenous peoples, the Muslim peoples, all those of various faiths and races, emancipatory to free us, humanistic and democratic values. It is encompassing and integral to the vision of a knowledge-based society. We are continually challenged to build a knowledge-based society. But I always say, and I have said this even before lifelong learning became fashionable in the university, lifelong learning is not only because it's important to know about computers, about communications, about robots, about science, because the principles of science are continually challenged and changed practically on a day-to-day basis. But it's also the nurturing of our soul as Filipinos. If we have our own engineers, our doctors of physics and so on, who will take care of the soul of the country? That's why dance is important, literature is important, novels are very, very important and help in human life. Songs are important because they express our soul, our life as a people, our aspirations. Kanina, I was telling myself, ano po kaya ang sasabihin ko? Sinabi na nila lahat, no, kanina sa presentation. They did a lot of research. Ang wala na lang doon yung aking love life. Which we are, and I think if you have a little bit more time, you will go into that. Now, so we have teaching and training towards those. We move from knowledge conveying instruction to the learning for personal development, to the acquisition of special skills. And so it requires a holistic sector-wide approach in which the educational system is designed to facilitate lifelong learning, not only lifelong, but life-wide learning, and the creation of formal, non-formal, informal learning opportunities for peoples of all ages. And this is why I'm very happy. I was talking with some of your superintendents, and they have shared with me how our alternative learning systems program is now expanding rapidly. I am very happy about this because the President himself has placed great interest in the IELTS program, and in one of the 3 sentences which he included on education during his State of the Nation address is really to expand the coverage of the alternative learning systems. And he has been sincere in that he's giving a very generous financial support. And if this financial support will be lacking, we can go to him and even ask for additional support, because this is a program that he believes in. This is because, considering all the challenges that we are facing, not all the children have the opportunity to go to formal schooling. People are surprised when I tell them that we still have Filipinos who don't know how to read and to write and to count. And you cannot imagine in a country like the Philippines, where everybody has, at the very least, 3 cell phones. You have people who cannot read, who cannot write, and who cannot count. And there are, I know that for a fact, because I have gone around the country. Now we are also going to talk about global citizenship. And we are introducing concepts of global citizenship in our curriculum. This is very, very important, because we have to guard against, we have to not really guard against or to moderate, but even as we teach our children love of country, knowledge about the history of our country, we also have to teach them about the world, about common values which, as citizens of the world, we all share. And we talk about human rights. We talk about caring for the planet. What we do to the environment in the Philippines affects everybody else. And this is, as I said, also very, very important. And Tuesday, or is it Thursday, I will be signing a memorandum of agreement with the Commission on Human Rights, wherein we will see to it that global citizenship will be part of the curriculum. Many young Filipinos will want to work abroad. They will want to travel. They will, and also people from other countries will be coming to the Philippines. We have to learn to live as human beings, to respect each other, in the same manner that we always remind the majority in our country that insofar as the minorities are concerned, we should respect them and we should give consideration for their special culture. So this is a very important aspect which we have to enrich. So napaka-challenging. Now, kanina, a while ago, I was talking with one of our superintendents. And I asked her, as always I ask everyone in many meetings, in many conferences, what motivates a teacher to want to become a teacher? I know that during my mother's time, my parents' time, by the way, my parents were both teachers. During my parents' time, teaching was a profession of honor. It's still a profession of honor right now. And my mother was getting 120 pesos a month, and they had to put 5 children in Silliman University, which is a private institution. And if they borrowed, it was for tuition. I know many teachers still borrow for tuition, but afterwards the habit of borrowing becomes so ingrained so that even if the children have already finished, the borrowing may continue, because it's so much fun really to borrow. I know that it's so much fun to borrow. It's the paying which is quite painful, and it's special. And by the way, we are just obeying your instructions because you give us authority to deduct. And the Constitution says the validity of contracts cannot be impaired. Anyway, I don't want to go back to that issue again, which is quite painful in a very literal way for many of us. This is why perhaps I'm the only secretary who wants to touch this problem and really find a solution which is lasting. But we need also your cooperation, because we cannot continue with teachers not getting the retirement pay. We cannot continue with teachers being dragged to court by private lending institutions. We cannot continue to allow what we call in the field of finance predatory lending, where institutions lend to people who probably are not aware of the fine print and really draw them into a trap for their own benefits. Institutions have earned billions and billions and billions from those who probably just need a few thousand pesos for their basic needs. This has to end. And what we did is only the beginning. We're trying to move forward to solve this problem. Anyway, this challenge. And some of you say, bakit yan si Briones, nakikialam kung anong gagawin namin si inuutang namin. Hindi kami nakikialam. Basta huwag lang ninyo kami i-authorize na mag-deduct. Huwag lang kami i-authorize. Because pag in-authorize nyo kami, we are impelled to collect from your salaries, and right now we don't want to make bungo the 4,000 limit. So it's like a problem of Sisyphus, you know, the Greek story of this guy who was punished by the gods, and so every day he was condemned to push a huge rock, huge boulder to the top of a mountain. Very difficult task to do. And by the time the boulder reaches the top of the mountain, it rolls down again, and he has to push it again. And this is a boulder which we have to all push together. So going back to global education, of global citizenship, it's not only Filipino citizenship that we should instill in our children. We should instill also global citizenship, especially at this time. So what are the implications of your two major issues which you are going to discuss for the rest of the 3 days? One on lifelong learnings. I have said this before in other conferences. I don't have to put it in writing, but maybe I'll put it in writing. I will require all officials, teachers of the Department of Education to carry in their handbags, together with the makeup and the cell phone and the lipstick and the baon, a book. Read a book, whatever it is, so that while waiting for your sundo, while waiting for the Uber, while waiting for the bus ride, you can read something new, something exciting. Secondly, you have 3 days. The National Museum is just across the street. I'd also encourage our Department of Education people, each time they come to Manila, in addition to, of course, to field trips to all the shopping centers and to all the shopping malls, to also visit the National Museum. There you can see the real spolarium. How many hundreds of years old, which won the gold prize in the Madrid exhibition. You'll see a lot of new things, and you learn more about yourself. Admission is free, no, and so that is one source. And this will help ignite curiosity. And every day, whatever you learn, this is what my father did. What my father did, he taught us in high school, elementary science. general science. And he also tried to teach us Tagalog, but then we Visayans are quite resistant. And we used to laugh at our teacher in geometry who insists that we say triangle, and we used to laugh, bakit triangle? Ang triangle, bakit? And we thought that it was our teacher who was wrong. Bakit rectangle? Rectangle man yan sa atin. And my father, before he starts the lesson in general science, or in physics, or whatever it is, would always start with a story. He'd always start with something he learned. So that's why at the age of 8, I already knew about the Count of Monte Cristo, the Man in the Iron Mask, and many other classics. So whatever new lesson you learn, whatever enlightenment you find, whether it is related or not to what you are teaching, maybe you can spend 5 minutes sharing that with your learners. Because for us who are already grown ups and already mature, we learn so many things every day. And all these things are useless if we don't share this new knowledge, this new perception, this new ways of looking and reflections. So I can go on the whole day. But fortunately for you, I'm going off to a very important meeting, so you will be spared, because in my graduate classes, our classes are from 5:30 to 8:30. Alas 10 na, my students would say, more pa, because we talk about Game of Thrones and how it relates to public finance, or Robin Hood, how it relates to taxation, and talk about events which make life so much more challenging for all of us. So I wish you a great, wonderful adventure in learning for the next 3 days. And when you go home, please share whatever you have picked up with your fellow teachers who are not here, your fellow officials who are not here, and maybe even with your neighbors. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po, Ma'am Liling, for that message straight from the heart. Let me invite the superintendents and assistant superintendents of Deped Calabarzon to join me in presenting the certificate of appreciation to our highly esteemed and highly respected Secretary of Education. But before that, I also would like to announce that your participation here will be entitling you to the CPD credits from the Professional Regulation Commission. We have just received our permission, accreditation as a CPD provider. Deped Calabarzon has received just now our accreditation.